With this I address you. Yes, you. Don't believe me? Look in the mirror. I mean exactly you. The listener listening to this story. Up to the end. I'm glad you stayed here until the very end of Children of the Night, and I'm very honored. Really I am. To you, I must say thank you. You have listened to my work and to my narration. I am grateful for that. In return, I hope I brought you some joy, some moments of happiness, and a good story. My narration may have not always been the best, nor my writing, but I still hope you enjoyed it. This is the final chapter of Children of the Night. I am working on a sequel, which is called A New Crisis. I'm really sincerely hoping you like that end that is here written in this last chapter. If you don't, you can always listen to the sequel. If you like the end, however, I would suggest you don't, because the end in this chapter is how I intended it to be. I hope you will listen to my other stories as well, as there are surely more to come. Again, I say thank you, my listener. Thank you. VisualPony. Children of the Night, Chapter 25. End of a Tale. Diamond greeted her old friend as a brown alicorn arrived with her forces to help them end the siege. They catched up on each other since they had last seen each other. "So, you have your own hive now? Sounds great. I just know you will do much better jobs than Chrysalis." "I'm honored you might think so. I do my best to enable my underlings to live alongside ponies, something my mother has never even seriously tried." Moonsinger's face darkened. "Yeah, I remember that only too well. Had I ended her back then, we might not have to deal with this crisis right now. Had you killed my mother back then, you might have made an enemy of me. Now, after that much time, I realize that it might have been for the best. But back then, I was still too young and had idolized my mother too much. Can't really blame you. What daughter wouldn't? Oh, by the way, how's the siege going? Any chance we can break that barrier?" "I'm sure we can break it with the help of your forces, but I would actually like to wait until the other two are here. We shouldn't rush things too much. My mother may be less intelligent than me, but she is standing with her back to the wall, and that makes her even more dangerous than ever before." "Ah, relax. I could have taken her when I was a unicorn. Now that I'm an alicorn, I have no doubt that it would be a quick fight." "That might be true, but don't be too sure that you would be the winner, Moonsinger. I can sense that you're quite full of yourself." "Why shouldn't I? These insects can't stop me if I really get into it." "These insects, as you call them, are my kin." "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to offend you, Diamond." "No offense taken, but you should really choose your words more wisely. And besides, my point is still valid. Mother has absorbed so many feelings over the last months, you can be sure that she is much stronger now than the last time you two met. Maybe even strong as yourself." "That is highly unlikely." "Unlikely, but not impossible. I know you are not a stupid pony, and I know you realize it as much as I do. The magic radiating from this barrier is enormous and threatening. I ask you to wait for Celestia and Luna to arrive before we attempt to breach it." Moonsinger sighed. Sure, Diamond's drone were attacking the barrier all the time, but she knew that was only to weaken it and preventing the magical shield from growing too strong. And yes, she knew that her friend was right. Chrysalis had fed so much over the last few months that there was just no telling how strong she had gotten. As much as Moonsinger hated to admit it, but to wait until at least her mother was in range was a logical course of action. "So, you are the newest addition to my family? Pleased to meet you again, Moonsinger." Cadence joined the two. The few changelings standing on Canterlot's walls made not even the slightest attempt to attack them. On the other hand, even if they wanted to try, they were unable to. Their queen's barrier kept them inside as much as it kept their attackers out. "Family? I don't understand, Princess Cadence." "No need to be so formal. We are both alicorns, and furthermore, you are Luna's adopted daughter. Since Luna is my godmother, that makes you kind of my cousin." Diamond began to chuckle. "Don't you confuse Moonsinger. I can see it on her face that she never thought about it like that." Moonsinger gave the two an annoyed pout. "I'm not stupid. You just said it yourself. But, yeah, I never thought about it that way. So, Princess Moonsinger, what do you say? Will you keep your head cool and wait for the others to arrive?" "Not so easy when you mock me with a title I don't desire in any way." Cadence watched the two friends. She liked what she saw very much. It showed that ponies and changelings did not have to be enemies. They could, just as easily, become friends. Sometimes even lovers in her case. The three commanders settled down behind a shield spell Cadence had put up just in case, and enjoyed a late meal. It was as much a try to distract Moonsinger from her attack plans as much as it was just a simple lunch. Cadence had been shocked when she had seen her cousin's forces. They were tired and exhausted. Some of them were even injured and needed medical assistance. She was sure that her cousin had maybe seen it, but was so determined to end all of this as soon as possible that she had maybe misjudged her situation. For several hours the three of them just sat there. Had there not been the sound of magical balls hitting the barrier, one might have mistaken the scene for a simple picnic between good friends. It was Moonsinger to notice it first. Her ears perked up and she looked to the horizon. There was a dust cloud rising up from the direction of the main forest. "All right, Mother is here, so let's start the action. I can't wait to see her face when the whole thing is over before she arrives here." "Moonsinger, I thought we had agreed to wait for Celestia as well." Diamond was uncomfortable with the thought that Moonsinger wanted to start the charge, but was unable to talk her out of it. Each step crackling with power and eagerness, Moonsinger took position in front of her forces. Her horn glowed with magic, and a small ball of pale white energy formed on its tip. With a flick of her neck, she threw it at the part of the barrier that covered the main gates to the city. To her own surprise, there was a hole blasted into it. She hadn't expected that, even through all her boasting earlier. Not willing to question a good thing, she sounded the charge with the traditional garden's battle cry. "For Mother! Show them how dangerous the dark can be!" All of her forces started to move, following close behind her as she charged at the hole in the barrier. As she passed into Canterlot city limits, Moonsinger felt a joy she had never expected possible. It was her first time in the land's capital, and she liked what she saw. Something was amiss, and Moonsinger noticed it, even so she was marveling over the beauty of the city. First of all, there were no defenders waiting for her, as she still stood inside the gateway. The second was, where were her forces? The moment she stopped, they should have run past her. Moonsinger turned around to find her soldiers beating on the barrier that was, once again, fully intact. She tried the same thing she had done earlier and shot one of her magical bolts at the barrier. It had no effect. She ran up to it and bucked at the barrier, but other than a loud thundercrack-like sound when her hooves struck it, there was no damage on it. Moonsinger shook her head. She had underestimated Chrysalis and had run headfirst into a trap. And such an obvious one for that. All this time she had been concentrating on ending the war, that she had not thought ahead. She had not done what would have been the only natural thing and what had saved her hide more than once. Why didn't I ask myself what I would have done? What's wrong with me? Luna galloped up to the barrier, having seen Moonsinger run into a hole in it that had closed behind her daughter. She pushed her other children to the side until they had noticed who was approaching and cleared a way for her. There she was. Moonsinger stood just inside the gate, trying to break the barrier again. Luna could not believe it. She had to tell her daughter. "Get out of there!" she shouted, but it was too late. Small holes opened in the ground beneath her daughter, and 39 spears shot up from the floor to impale everything they came in contact with. It was one of the few defense mechanisms she had been able to convince Celestia of, and now that same one was impaling her own daughter. Moonsinger saw her mother move her lips, but couldn't hear a single word. She tried to read her lips, but then a click sounded through the gateway. As she looked down from where the click had come, she saw several holes that had been covered up with metal plates open slowly. A second later, several spears shot out of them. Moonsinger tried to evade them, but to no avail. She tried to teleport, but her magic was not working for some reason. As she danced to her right to evade one of the spears, another one shot through her left hind leg, pinning her in place. With a scream, she fell to her knees when 2 other spears pierced her wings, almost ripping them off. The pain was almost too much for her to bear for her right now. When 2 of the wooden death sticks impaled her sides, her head dropped to the ground. The ones that had came from the ground she may have been able to outrun, but the ones that now came from the walls made every attempt on escape as impossible. Laying there, she turned her head to face her mother, who was now hitting the barrier in the same manner she had just moments ago. Her voice barely above a whisper, she addressed her mother. "Help!" She never got to finish her sentence, and Luna never heard the words due to the barrier. A final spear shot up from just under Moonsinger's skull, impaling it and ending Moonsinger's suffering forever. Luna stood there, her eyes wide open and filled with tears. Her beating on the barrier became weaker and weaker, until she dropped down to all fours at first, before she sat on her haunches, unable to take her eyes off of her dead daughter. For a moment everything else went silent around her, until a black figure with green grimy mane walked cautiously into the gateway. It started to prod at the now dead Moonsinger, and started laughing. Luna felt a rage well up in her that she had not felt in more than 1,000 years. Tears streaming from her face, she struggled to her hooves and brushed off every hoof that tried to assist her. The magic that now whirled around her started to change, from a pure, pale white to a pure and nightmarish black. Like flames that burned everything that came into contact with them, her now black mane and tail reached out, enveloping the whole barrier that kept her from getting to her daughter. The changelings looked up at the blackness that enveloped the city. They shrinked back in fear as the darkness became absolute and blotted out even the light of the sun. They all looked up at the sky. That was nothing but black, just like a night sky that had not a single star in it. A loud cracking sound spread through Canterlot as the barrier Chrysalis had put up to keep the invaders out broke. The queen was startled when she found her spell broken. She had assumed that it could withstand more than enough punishment, but now Luna alone had broken it. Before she could see again, she could feel a grip on her horn and a numbing pain as it was broken off. Chrysalis screamed as the pain coursed through her skull and tried to make out her attacker, but still the darkness was absolute. Not even any sound traveled through it. It was as if every ray of light and every ever so small noise was devoured by it. She couldn't even hear her own breathing. "What's the matter, Chrysalis? I thought you wanted to see with your own eyes what the power of Nightmare Moon was like." "You are dead! I saw it myself! My drones mutilated your corpse! You are dead!" "Oh, but yes, Nightmare Moon is no more. I am Princess Luna of Equestria. But our affinity with the darkness is pretty much the same. Luna's voice was calm and mocking at the same time, as she walked in a circle around Chrysalis. She had made sure that the only thing the queen heard was her own voice. Other than Chrysalis, she could see just fine in the complete darkness. She could feel her children, Cadence, Diamond, and even Celestia try to get through the barrier her mane and tail had formed. She would deny them entry. This was now something between her and Chrysalis. If it was just a matter of political infighting before, it had now turned personal. Luna would not allow any pony to lay a hoof on Chrysalis until she was done with her. Chrysalis started to panic, swinging her hoofs into the darkness, bucking into nothingness, but she hit nothing. Instead, she felt the wind being knocked out of her lungs as she went on an involuntary flight, only to be stopped by a brick wall. "What is the matter, Queen Chrysalis? I thought you wanted to fight. Is this all you can do? You are pathetic. You are not fighting fair. Let me see, and you'll wish you never came here." "Fair? You accuse me of not fighting fair?" She was pulled out of the wall by her mane and sent flying into the darkness once again, until she hit another wall, head first this time. "You lure ponies into traps, and use the defenses I built against my daughter. You weren't even brave enough to try and defeat her in an open battle. I just return the favor." Chrysalis struggled to her hoofs, staggering slightly. The force with which she had hit a wall for the second time now had injured her some. "That stupid moonsinger! Had my daughter not betrayed me, I would have ended her centuries a—" Another hoof struck her, cutting her sentence short. This time she hit the ground, snout first. Before she could try to recover, she felt that some pony turned her to her back and pinned her legs to the ground with a spell. "So, you've won. What now? Will you kick me out like the last time? Will you imprison me?" "You don't deserve any of that." The coldness in Luna's voice made Chrysalis shiver, and realize that she was in for more than she had bargained for. Before she could speak again, however, a hoof buried itself deep inside her gut. She could feel her entrails rip at the force and her spine break. At the same time, her head was enveloped by a spell that she did not recognize. Hit after hit, her bones got broken, her organs smashed, and the blood pressed upwards towards her mouth. "This is for Cookie Jar!" One more hit connected with her stomach, breaking all the way through her and into the asphalt this time. "This is for Frostmane!" And again a particular strong hit rained down on her. Chrysalis could feel that her body was now nothing more than a mush of crushed bones and flesh. She did not understand why she was not dead yet or unconscious. And why the hay did she still feel every part of her body? Then it hit her like a hammer blow. The spell around her head. It was keeping her alive and connected with her body. It denied her the sweetness of unconsciousness or death. Screaming all the names of her children she had seen dying, Luna continued to bring her hoofs down on Chrysalis. By now she had beaten her so often and so hard that the both of them had broken the face of the street and had fallen into the sewer system below Canterlot. Suddenly Luna stopped, looking up as her mane and tail barrier was broken. She felt it practically burn away, and it hurt her very badly. In just the blink of an eye, she found herself being pushed against one of the walls of the sewers by a solar flare. "Let me go!" "No, I won't. I like you, Luna, and I didn't want to help Celestia any more until she sees her own mistakes. But I can't let this happen. You are not fully turned yet. You have to fight it. Don't let your anger and remorse take you over. It is the fastest way to become a vile creature like my sister was one. I don't want to see a good Alicorn like you turn into something like that ever again." "But Moonsinger, Moonsinger." "Shh, I know, Luna. but torturing her will gain you nothing." With that, solar flare negated the spell that kept Chrysalis alive. The second she did, the changeling queen's eyes broke, and she ceased to be. Luna slowly calmed down, her mane and tail slowly returning to their usual state, reflecting the night sky. Also, her magical color, that still swirled around her, changed back to a pale white. Solar flare embraced Luna, stroking her mane with a hoof. "Thank you, Solar." "I did not do this for you, Celestia. You still have not learned your lesson. In my eyes, you are a mere toddler that has barely any living experience and is unwilling to see her own mistakes." "I beg your pardon. I am over 1,500 years old." "And I am over 30,000 years old. So, who is the one with more experience here?" "You know what? Don't answer that. You disgust me. Upon seeing your niece's dead body, the first thing you do is ask me to save your sister, not wasting a single thought for Moonsinger." "I'm sorry she's dead, but there was nothing I could have done. Luna, however, needed help." "She didn't. That insect never stood a chance against her. The only thing I must admit is that it was good I prevented her from fully turning. Had she, then all of this would have ended much, much worse. And for now, you stay in the background until this crisis is resolved. I watched you meddling long enough." "You can't do that. I'm the ruler of all of Equestria." Celestia thought at her mental passenger and tried to overpower her, just to be thrown back forcefully to the back of her own mind. "Don't try to fight me, Celestia. I am in no mood for your temper tantrums." Gently, solar flare lifted Luna out of the sewers, while the fight around them was now on for real. The changelings fought bravely, but they had felt their queen's death. The attackers were quickly overpowering them. In addition to that, more and more of the ponies that were now free of the mind control joined in on the fight, not letting a single one of their tormentors escape. That evening found Luna sleeping under a tree outside of Canterlot. The battle inside the city was over, and Celestia was already in charge of the government again. She, however, had refused to be reinstated. Solar Flare had told her everything. How her sister had treated Twilight Sparkle, the one and only pony she called her friend outside the garden, along with how she had reacted to see Moonsinger's dead body. Luna had enough. Over the last 1.5 millennia, she had watched her sister plot and scheme, but now she was tired of it. She awoke when Apple Candy nudged her side gently. "What is it, Candy? Is it time for us to go?" "No, not yet, Mother. Celestia insists that you address your subjects, and then decide if you really want to leave." "And if I don't want to?" "Well, she said she'd just make sure we'd be confined within city limits until you decide." "As always, Big Sis doesn't really leave me any other choice." "Very well, let's get it over with. You gather the survivors and get ready to leave as soon as I'm done here." "As you wish, Mother." Luna made her way to the balcony outside the throne room. Beneath it was a large crowd of gathered ponies. Celestia had already prepared a new set of royal vestments for her, a new crown, breastplate, and silver horseshoes, but Luna did not put any of them on or exchange a single word with her sister before addressing the crowd of ponies. They no longer were her subjects. She was no longer a princess, and that decision was final. Using her royal Canterlot voice to address all of them, she began her speech. "My fellow ponies, you are once again free. My children of the night have performed that feat, together with help of my niece Cadence of the Crystal Empire, and her ally Diamond, the new changeling queen. Don't fret, my fellow ponies. Diamond has ensured that none of her drones will ever have to attack a pony. They will live peacefully alongside us. Also, I am hereby declaring the Everfree Forest an independent nation. No pony will be allowed to approach it in the future unless Twilight sparkle. If any of you see her, please relay that to her. That is my last act as a princess of Equestria." At this the crowd began to murmur. "I am no longer Princess Luna. I am simply Luna, mother to the children of the night. And as any good mother should do, I will, from this day on, stay with my children within the Everfree Forest. Don't think that me residing there is a permission for any of you to approach it, though. My children will guard the perimeter and warn every pony that comes too close. Ignore their warning, and you will have to deal with the consequences. I wish you all happy lives, my fellow ponies. I wish you all long and happy lives, you equestrians. I am no longer one of you." With that, before Celestia was able to stop her, Luna teleported herself out of the city limits to her children. All of them looked tired and sad. They were happy, on one end, that Luna would now stay with them, but were mourning their fallen friends. Luna let her eyes glow, reassuring all of them with some mental words, before the group of a little over 60,000 ponies started to make their way towards the Everfree Forest. 64 years later.
"And that was all, great-grandmother?"
A blue-coated Pegasus filly with orange mane and tail asked her orange-coated and grey-maned great-grandmother. The unicorn put a hoof up to her chin and thought for a moment.
"I think so, Dawn." "But what happened to the elements of harmony? You never told me. What happened to them? And where was Rainbow Dash when Pinkie Pie was brought back injured?"
"Oh, that. Well, many ponies think that they have left Equestria for good, since they could not forgive Princess Celestia for using them like tools. Others have told me they think they have gone with Discord to another world entirely. As for Rainbow Dash, she had gathered up Fluttershy's animal friends and had asked Twilight to teleport her to the peak of Mount Unicornia. There, in the snow of the mountain, she built a small cross from branches the animals had brought her. It is still there. Onto the cross she bound 2 feathers. One was her own, while the other was a feather from Fluttershy she had found in their cell. When they were done, however, Twilight had been too deep in her depression to teleport them back. They only reunited when they all left the palace. And Rainbow sure gave Twilight a piece of her mind for leaving her up there for 3 days.
"What do you think happened to them? I mean, you seem to know a lot about it all."
"I think they are still in Equestria somewhere, waiting for the day they can finally forgive and forget what has happened."
"But isn't that kind of stupid, Grandma Glow?"
"What do you mean, Dawn?"
"I mean, if the princess simply apologized, they would be able to work it all out. You always told me that there is no problem that can't be solved by talking."
The older mare sighed and stroked the orange mane of her great-granddaughter. "Yes, but some things are hard to talk about. One party has to make the first move, and it won't work out if one of them does not see they did something wrong."
"So the princess is now all alone?"
"She is not alone. She acts as if all of this never happened. Even so, I have heard that, more than once, she tried to get into the Everfree Forest, but was turned away by the children of the night. She even once tried to force her way in, but that didn't go too well for her. The will to talk is definitely in her, but I doubt she accepts that many left her side because of the way she acted."
"That's sad. I mean, if Luna and the elements would just talk to her."
Midnight Glow shook her head. "You are too young to understand, my little angel, and now I think it's time for a certain little filly to go to sleep."
"Aw, but I want to know more stuff."
"Save it for tomorrow. I promise I will answer it all when we visit Canterlot tomorrow."
"Yay!"
Glow tucked the blankets in around her great-granddaughter and couldn't help but smile. She was happy that her granddaughter, Evening Shine, had allowed her to have the little filly over the weekend. Even so, at her age, it was not so easy anymore to deal with this much energy. She put the lights out with her magic and quietly left the room, walking slowly down the hall towards her living room. On the walls were many pictures of friends and family, also of her travels all over Equestria. She had written down everything she was able to learn about the changelings' attack on Equestria in these travels, and had spoken with many other witnesses. As she approached a shelf in her living room, she took one particular photograph and held it in her hooves. As she looked at it, she broke out in tears. The photograph showed all of her friends, and all of them were smiling. Now she was the last of them. The last of them, except herself, had died 3 months prior.
You are crying again. Is there anything I can do for you?
Came a familiar voice from behind her, and she spotted a blue earth pony stallion with red mane. His cutie mark was a green book. I'm okay, Discord. You can change back to your true form now. The little one is asleep. With a puff of smoke, the image of the stallion disappeared, and before Twilight stood the Draconis she knew so well. It had been him who had gotten all of them out of the prison, and had enabled them to flee. He had also been the one who had made it possible for them to hide so well. Discord had used his magic to change all of them, and no pony had ever seen through it in all this time. The Draconis stretched before he walked over to Twilight, carefully putting his paw on her back.
Twilight, I must ask you to reconsider. Please accept my offer, and I will make you a fully grown alicorn. You will be immortal, and everything.
Sorry, Discord. I can't accept your offer. I don't want to die, but I have a family now. Were you to make me immortal, I would outlive them all, and after all I've lost, I don't think I could bear that. And no, don't even think about making all of them alicorns. Don't forget the political consequences that might have. Remember what happened when it became apparent that Cadence is not having trouble controlling her emotions, but was instead inherited an alicorn's immortality.
Yeah, how could I forget? Celestia really is paranoid these days. Full-out war with the Crystal Empire for 10 years. But don't they have peace now?
It's not really peace. It's a ceasefire. Celestia must learn that Cadence never had any ambition on her throne, but being alone has done strange things to her, I suppose.
You could talk her into it.
Maybe, but I won't. I have hidden from Celestia for most of my life now. I don't hate her anymore like I used to, but I still can't fully forgive her. Neither does Luna, I think.
Have you ever gone to see her?
Looking like this? She wouldn't have recognized me. And even if I did, the Wonderbolts patrol the area night and day. Don't you think they would immediately report it if some pony was able to enter the forest and get out again, when Luna made it clear only I am allowed inside? Discord picked up a flyer that lay on a small table, trying to distract himself from what he had felt. The life force of his last friend in the world was fading quickly.
So, you really want to take her there?
He said, waving the flyer in front of her. Yeah, the Crystal Grave they call it. For me, it's a tomb of my friends. I don't like it that they excavated it and now made it a tourist attraction.
But they can't get inside. I made sure of that. Not even Celestia and Luna together could break down that door. Only you can open it, just as you wanted it.
And I can't thank you enough for that. We might have to split up in hiding, not to be discovered, but that way we can at least be together in death. The elderly unicorn mare said, hugging Discord. The spirit of chaos returned her hug with a tear in his eye. The next day, Midnight Glow and her great-granddaughter and her butler Green Script walked up the excavated tunnel that was the entrance to the crystal grave. Many tourists from all over Equestria had come on this day. It was the 46th anniversary of Equestria's victory after all. All marveled at the crystal door, emblazoned with 5 symbols. 3 butterflies, 3 balloons, 3 diamonds, 3 apples, and a cloud with a rainbow lightning bolt coming out of it. Midnight's eyes started to tear up as she looked at it. The symbols had appeared in the order they had died, and she had made sure they were brought here before the change happened. She felt a hoof on her shoulder and looked into Script's green eyes as she turned around.
"Are you okay, Miss Glow?"
Yeah. Please, Script, go back to Hoofington ahead of me. I just remembered that I have something else to take care of in Canterlot, and that could take me a while. You know, my old age." The stallion looked worried at his friend, but then nodded.
"See you later, great-grandmother. Don't be too long,"
the young Pegasus filly shouted as the 2 ponies left the crystal grave ahead of her. She looked around one final time and saw the blue stallion mouth a single word without speaking it. "Farewell." Twilight waited until the tourists had cleared, and it had become quite late before she walked up to the crystal door that showed their friend's cutie marks. Soon it would hold her own as well. She put a hoof on the door, and it reacted to her touch immediately and slid aside. As she stepped inside, the crystal walls began to glow with a dim rainbow-colored light. In the middle of the room were 6 pedestals. On each of them lay a crystal in which a pony seemed to sleep. Each and every one of them had been returned to the state of the day they had first met. Crystal Grave seemed pretty much on the point the more she thought about it. Twilight walked the line of her dead and conserved friends. The change had come soon after their deaths, and they had all witnessed it with Fluttershy. She had turned back to being a Pegasus about an hour after her death. Soon after, her body was, without any pony able to explain why it happened, enclosed in a thick shell of crystal. The same had happened after Pinkie Pie had died. Her strong muscles had faded, and her mane and tail had become poofy once again, before she as well had been surrounded by crystal. By the time Rarity had died, the friends had anticipated a change, but what had actually happened had left them all speechless. Not only did her horn and eye regenerate, but she seemed to age backwards. Before the crystal had closed around her, she was, once again, just a mare of 19 years. It had happened to Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and so it would happen to her once she took her place on the last, the 6th pedestal. This was when she felt an aura she had not felt this close to herself in many, many years. A soft but trembling voice called out to her, "I knew I'd find you here, my faithful student." Yeah, okay. Every pony, this was Children of the Night, the final chapter. And I can assure you that when I wrote this, I was very, very emotional about it. Because you can see, I will tell you this, Moonsinger, even so the setting from how she looks is not really from me, but as I stated in the description of chapter 1, I think, I have taken her color scheme from the unicorn mare that is shown in the music video Children of the Night. And that was also my idea of creating this story and naming her refuge, Luna's refuge, Garden of Shadows. And when I wrote her death scene, I was crying. Why was I crying? Because Moonsinger was, by far, my most favorite character in this whole story. Okay, there were Frostmane, whose mane had the same abilities as Nightmare Moon's, or Flametail, or the always reasonable Bright Light, who always had a good story, if you would ask him. And many others like Gold Shield, Quick Arrow, Cherry Pie, Apple Candy comes to mind. Right now, it is like losing a good friend. I've worked on the story for only about 5 weeks, but I've grown very close to it. Ending it like this was how it was supposed to be. How I, from the start, from the very first word on, intended it to end. But looking back on it now, I don't know if that was the right thing to do. Moonsinger was a great pony, and I think as long as I'm a brony, and as long as I keep doing these readings, moreover, as long as I keep writing stories, Moonsinger will be one of my favorite characters. She was always dependable, sometimes a little short-tempered, but always played by the rules, and always hated it when she had to break them. She loved her mother. She loved her brothers and sisters. She loved her husband. And she died a meaningless death. To be honest, that didn't sit well with me to write this scene, but it was necessary for the conclusion of this story. Every pony, I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed writing it, that much I can tell you. Even so, I have my thoughts about this last chapter. And I hope you will stay true to my readings, and maybe we will see each other again in another story. Maybe even a prequel to this one. Maybe I will write a story in which Moonsinger's life before Luna came back is described. Maybe I will do that. Until then, I sign off. Sincerely yours, VisualPony.